Good afternoon. I'm Dara Bunjon. I'm the food enthusiast here at Jaymore Living. I'm a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. Those of you joining us live, drop your comments and questions from my guest or myself into the comment box, and I will check from time to time. Our guest's today's credentials are impeccable, interesting, and ultimately very impressive. Is he the most interesting man in the world? It is said he once turned a vampire into a vegetarian, and his personality is so magnetic he is unable to carry credit cards. Corby Kummer is executive director of the Food and Society at the Aspen Institute, a senior lecturer at the Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition Science, and a senior editor of The Atlantic, for which he was a longtime food columnist and originated a vertical on food sustainability, policy, and food justice. He attended the Loomis Chaffee School and received a BA from Yale College. He is the author of Joy of Coffee and The Pleasure of Slow Food, the first book in English on slow food movement, and he has been a restaurant critic for the New York, Boston, and Atlanta magazines, and a food and food policy columnist for the New Republic. He has received 6 James Beard Journalism Awards, one of the country's most widely quoted experts on food justice and food culture in the United States. Corby is a featured commentator on food and food policy every week on WGBH Boston Public Radio. I am truly excited to have Corby, let's see, my mouth will work, Corby join us. The 30, 40 minutes chatting is just the tip of the iceberg with Corby. So let's bring in Corby.
Hi there, delighted to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here, and I'm just sitting here and hitting everything that I need to hit. I thank you for joining us. I know your schedule is jam-packed. Other than doing the show today, what else do you have on your plate to do?
2 interviews of the over 80 we'll be doing from the well over 400 applications we received for our new cohort of Food Leaders Fellows at the Aspen Institute. 18 spots, and we've got wonderful applicants and wonderful interviews, and then teaching 2 hours by Zoom at Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition and Food Policy.
Just that? Nothing else?
Left some stuff out.
Okay, well, you just completed. Let's jump right into food as medicine. The Food as Medicine Community Action Plan has been completed. This is why you're looking for new fellows. I feel you could tell people better than I about food and society at Aspen Institute. So why don't I just open up the floor to you?
Oh, thank you. So we do a number of things. One of them is the fellowship, and then completely separate is our food as medicine work. So they're not connected. Lots of programs within the Aspen Institute do several things, including the leadership program. I would say we're most known for the food leaders because we have over 400 applications a year for it. We're now interviewing for our 5th cohort, and they're incredibly exciting young people. I say young, they're anywhere from their mid-20s to their early 50s, and they've already had a proven track record of making change in the food system toward equity and sustainability. So everyone from the head of global agriculture sustainability for McKinsey Consulting to a small good old boy southerner in the Mississippi Delta who goes from farm to farm, telling long-time multi-generational farmers like him that they can transition to sustainable methods without losing money, to a woman who's in charge of much of the purchasing for all of Disney resorts, to a woman, Seneca Edwards Heron, who founded a very small foundation with a powerful national impact to get credit and capital for Black farmers, multi-generational farmers like herself. So we have huge companies, we have small companies, And they all come together and they come to know each other during a week in Aspen at the campus of the Aspen Institute, which is in Aspen, Colorado. The actual Aspen Institute, confusingly, is in Washington, D.C., where lots of programs like mine do our good works. But they come together and they bond for life. And it's a really wonderful, memorable opportunity for our fellows. We've got 72 now. We have a partnership with the Global Food Institute, which Jose Andres started at George Washington University. And we're working with the faculty of George Washington from all kinds of global geography, sociology programs. So fantastic to have that partnership. So to branch out in the world with all of these young and mid-career leaders who come to our fellowship and decide, how can I have greater potential? Is it in my current job? Is it finding a new job? A lot of them, we say they're at moments of inflection, and they seem to inflect a lot once they come to our fellowship meetings. So they're delightful. But food is medicine is something the program started even before a fellowship. We gathered together all of the peer-reviewed research into what medically tailored meals, medically tailored groceries, and produce prescriptions, access to fresher food that was specifically geared to people who had diabetes or end-stage renal disease or obesity or kidney problems, lots of so-called comorbidities. So lots of things at once that require not just one kind of meal, but a very special kind of meal. And the whole goal is to really help them manage their disease and prevent future diseases. So that's what we've been doing at Food and Society around food as medicine.
Right. And what we're talking about in looking at some of this, 1 in 10 adult meets the U.S. dietary requirements. There are people with food and nutritional insecurities. You work to bring together community-based organizations along with suppliers, farmers. Am I getting the right gist of this? This is
You
so.
are, and thanks for mentioning community-based organizations. So very small food pantries, churches, schools that have after-school programs. These small places are often deeply rooted in a community. They have more trust than other people who might swoop in from a big university or a big healthcare system. And so our newest community action plan, Food is Medicine Community Action Plan, is geared around how much smaller organizations can make contact with the people in their community who can prevent future illness and manage current illness better by changing their diets, help teach them how to change their diets, help make it the easy, affordable choice. All of those things are difficult, but they start with trust. So they start with the community-based organizations that have been working in the community, run by people in the community for years, and are so much better positioned to help people make change than somebody swooping in and telling them what to do.
Understandably. But I think, weren't you the founder of this? Wasn't this your baby that you started, the Aspen Food Organization?
Yeah, I created it. There's maybe 24 all told programs that do economy, religion, law and justice, 2 generational approaches to raising children. So those are some of my peer programs. And the idea at Aspen is if you have a really clear mission, you have a path to achieve it, and you raise your own money to achieve it, because everybody has to raise all of their own money to achieve it, then, and you really illustrate community spirit, not only among the people you bring together in your own programs, but all of the programs at the Aspen Institute, then you can do it. So it's 10 years since I founded Food and Society at the Aspen Institute. And I was a food journalist, as you kindly said at the beginning, for a long, long time. I got more and more interested in public health. I got more and more interested in how can big companies make better for you food? How can they make people want to buy it and be able to afford it? So I would do article after article for The Atlantic, for the New York Times Magazine, for Vanity Fair, for the New Republic, talking about new ways food companies were helping people eat better. But I really thought, rather than have people use me as a mouthpiece to the press to burnish their own credentials, I wanted to bring them all together and say, what if you talked in the same room about how you could collaborate, how you could come together to make change? And fortunately, the Aspen Ideas Festival is a wonderful conference that happens at the end of every June going into July 4th. Was started with The Atlantic where I was. I was very involved with it from the beginning. It's just had its 21st anniversary. I got to see how other programs within Aspen were doing just that. They were bringing together leaders to make more change by working together and not just within their own organizations. And I thought, let's do that with food. And so we've done.
You know, it's such a frustrating time now. And we think about those who have already dealing with food and nutritional issues because of their poverty level, that now that the cost of food is rising, everything is rising. And I think at one point you brought out price stickiness, meaning once the tariffs go away, the prices are still remaining high. We're not going to see a drop. Yeah, eggs drop somewhat, but now I'm paying $2 a dozen when I used to pay $1 a dozen.
Isn't it impressive and awful? I didn't really know this, but let's say tariffs create a rise in the price of imported shrimp, imported cheese that everybody cares about. You think that when the tariffs end, so will the rising prices. They'll come right back down. They don't come right back down. Once they go up, they generally stay up. And I'm not an economist. I should have known that. I did not know that. During COVID, when the price of eggs went up, eggs have gone down recently. But once it creates this whole knock-on effect of supply chains having to pay more, the big retailers having to pay more for supply, the price just sticks there. And that's why economists who know more than I do call it price stickiness. So price rises are not a good thing, and they're not a temporary thing.
Right. Well, I think stickiness pretty much says that, doesn't it? I want to go, I usually start off a little bit differently and find out more about, because this is a show about food. And I'm very vocal and very interested in the family table. So my question to you is, tell me about your family table growing up.
Oh gosh, that's such a nice question. Um, I think my mother was one of a whole generation of women who were college educated during and after the war, did some graduate school, then started families and kind of set everything aside to raise a family, but became deeply interested in food. And her brother's wedding gift to her was every issue of Gourmet magazine that had been published since its founding in the mid 40s to their time in the 50s when they were married. And my uncle and his family and my mother would sort of competitively cook. And so food was enormously important in our family, and I think played too great a role in my mother's life. And I know many people my age who feel this way, that really her talents and mind would have been much better put to working and the workplace, but it wasn't done particularly. So we certainly paid a lot of attention to food, and I grew up in a tiny northern Connecticut, rural, poor, not rich Connecticut town where I was fifth generation of Jewish farmers. Although by my grandparents' generation they were getting out of farming, but my great grandparents were very active in helping other Jews come from Eastern Europe and afford land, and started cooperative societies and synagogues. And so there was still a local kosher butcher. There was an artisan Polish non-Jewish baker who made fabulous challah and raisin breads that he had learned growing up in Poland from Jewish bakers, and great rye bread. So we were really fortunate to have access to very good raw materials and foods, even in this really tiny Connecticut town. And we were near the University of Connecticut, which had a big ag extension program and a wonderful dairy store where the cottage cheese was just the best ever, and so was the ice cream and sour cream. So we would go for that. We were a food-oriented family.
Okay. Which brings me to a point. I know your dad was a doctor.
How amazing you know that.
Well, what else do I have to do with my time?
I'm impressed.
I go looking. I don't know what I'm going to say or do. I just sort of make notes. But your dad would take you kids on the rounds, and you would go to friendlies. That was your reward.
This is so extraordinary. Thank you for noticing this. I'm stunned. Friendly's was a very big deal for us because it was the only restaurant in town. It was a really small town. Howard Johnson's was a half hour away in Manchester and extremely exotic with all of its ice creams. But Friendly's was what we did Saturdays after synagogue. And we had the so-called big beef. So that was a square hamburger patty, quite thick and medium rare, on toasted white bread, maybe toasted wheat bread, and very good ice cream. It's from Wilbraham, Mass. I later met the family who started Friendly's, but it was just a big deal, and it was local and artisan. And I later became very active in the James Beard Restaurant Awards. There was something called America's Classics. And they went region by region, and there was a place called Shady Glen in Manchester, Connecticut. It was dairy country. They made great ice cream from their own farm, and they again had square hamburger patties, which they would put on a griddle with American cheese that flew out like a nun's cap on the sides of the square bread it was toasted on. Just
like the triangles hanging down.
Pullman loaf. Yes, but they actually somehow came up like nuns' hats. It was an extraordinary presentation. It was just great. And I can't remember, I'm so remembering big beef, but I can't remember what they were called at Shady Glen, maybe just burgers. But we got them in America's Classic Awards because they were so good.
I remember the awards because there was, here in Baltimore, I think it was Marconi's got it. You know, there were restaurants.
No, I remember when Marconi's got it. I wrote a piece on Marconi's for The Atlantic.
See, we're all connected in one way or another, aren't we? Okay, so I take it that you do like to cook? Yes?
I like to cook, but I'm a bad, unoriginal cook who follows instructions. My tendencies and my preferences are more as a baker. So that marks me as an unimaginative rule follower despised by real cooks.
No, it says you like science.
I like the idea that I will be assured a result if I take the trouble to follow a recipe.
Okay. So 6 James Beard Journalism Awards, 1992, 2 awards, the Restaurant Review and the MFK Fisher Distinguished Writing Award. Wow. Just wow. Did you not say wow?
No, I've forgotten that. I was actually on a trip to Italy. I spent a lot of time in Italy. What could be better? And I came back for one day to get that MFK Fisher Award. And I'll say that that's a chance to talk about how much food media has changed. Those were the days when I was able to see the world thanks to luxury magazines that had lots and lots of print ads from fashion houses, from perfume companies, from all manner of companies. And journalists like me were able to live higher than their salaries would ever allow them to and see and discover the world. Those days are pretty much over when expenses would be paid by a magazine. It's also resulted in a radical contraction of restaurant reviews and a whole different set of responsibilities for restaurant reviewers. They have to be much more responsive to and caring about how a staff is treated, what the community roots are of a restaurant. Even when I was at Boston Magazine, which I was for over 20 years as their critic, I really cared about what's the contribution to the community this restaurant is making. If I didn't like a small mom and pop restaurant, I would choose not to review it. I would only do takedowns of well-funded, generally absentee-owned corporate restaurants that, for whatever reason, had taken out a lot of advertising, that had a high profile in the community, so there'd be a reason to even pay attention to them. But now I think, first of all, Yelp and other social media platforms and Instagram influencers have so usurped the role of restaurant critics that there's a whole nother way of thinking about restaurant criticism and service. And I think, and the people I most admire think, it's service to the community within a small catchment area, neighborhood that are going to a restaurant, and to the community of cooks and servers who try to stay alive by operating that restaurant.
I have to say, here in Baltimore, we just had two restaurants. One, both of them have been around for a long time, just closed the doors. It is getting tougher and tougher and harder. And, you know, not that I did many reviews. I've written about people, but I always felt like they always put everything on the line, their kids' college education, the house, to keep that restaurant going. But if you needed something, the restaurateurs were right there. They're generous and giving and caring. And my heart is always with the local restaurateurs everywhere. And I appreciate you saying, you know, if the mom and pop, it wasn't a great time, there's no point in killing them. But I understand why you would go for the big mucky mucks. I have so many things here. Okay, what do I want to hit? Oh, you wrote 3 articles for the Atlantic about coffee, and that precipitated your book about coffee. I'm just trying to see the name of this. And
Joy
I
of
bring it
Coffee.
up. You like coffee?
The Joy of Coffee was the name of the book.
Thank you. All right. And I bring it up only because I wrote a story called Juan Valdez is No Friend of Mine. I can't stand coffee.
Oh, you can't stand
I wrote,
coffee.
I can't stand the smell.
Oh, I feel so bad for you.
I do tea, but I can't do coffee.
I
I
have a
think,
shocking pantry full of teas because my little secret in researching the joy of coffee, I fell in love with tea. But I drink both coffee and tea every day.
well, it gave me an opportunity to tell people about my little story. So self-promoting, what can I say? And coffee, Juan Valdez notes, I know your time's valuable. And when, at any time when you were in college, did you work in a restaurant? Or most people at some point in their life have worked in a restaurant, bussing tables, waiting tables in the kitchen. I was curious if you ever worked in a restaurant growing up, but
No,
you only had one in what?
to my shame, I did not. And I think that, Tom Sitzema, who recently took a buyout from the Washington Post when the buyouts were being offered last year, he did a wonderful, at least week-long stint at a restaurant to know how hard it was. Frank Bruni went to a place called East Coast Grill in Boston, in Cambridge, Mass, near Boston, not New York, where he was working for the New York Times. And also, they both wrote, they were restaurant critics who thought, I need to know how hard and nonstop this is. I've spent days on end in restaurant kitchens to report on them, but I haven't done the actual hard work of failing. It's not doing tasks in time. And I've often thought about it, but I'm lily-livered and inexperienced. I never worked in a restaurant.
Just curious. Yeah. I remember my summer in Atlantic City working in restaurants. Okay. So many questions here. Okay. Um, to tell people and all this information's come up in the comments section. Go to aspen.org,
No, aspenfood.org.
aspenfood.org, corbykummer.com, and just you see his name. And I would say find Corby on LinkedIn because he's constantly posting what's of interest to him, his times on WGBH radio in Boston, whatever the subject's coming in as to the shots for diabetes and how that's affecting how people are eating, to people taking sauces into restaurants. You've covered it there. I'm not going to ask you to cover it here. But I found it interesting on your LinkedIn. One of the interviews that you've done was with Eric Repair and La Bernardine. Was he a hero of yours?
Gosh, I just corresponded with Eric today, and I got to eat at his restaurant, Le Bernardin, last week in New York. Why? There's a Baltimore connection. Mark Furstenberg is one of our closest friends. He grew up in Baltimore, loved Marconi's. His family went often. And he started a bakery here called Bread First. He began being interested in baking only in his 50s. He'd worked in public service, JFK's White House, straight out of college, and then Robert F. Kennedy's. Helped desegregate the Boston Police Corps, but he loves food and makes wonderful food. And at the age of 88, goes into the bakery every day. And he decided, want to go to Bernardin. It's one of the only places that's really worth going to. Tom Sitzema and every critic sort of begs to take him to restaurants on review meals. He goes often. But we decided, with a longtime book editor who edited many legendary food books, Susan Friedland, and I invited along my pal Pete Wells, former New York Times critic. We just had a wonderful evening. Aspen trustees. So the trustees of the Aspen Institute can pretty invariably go exactly where they want any night of the year. But when I said I was having a conversation at the Ideas Festival in Aspen last summer with Eric Repair, they made it their business to come because they said nowhere do they feel that special. And so it's a question of the professionalism of the staff. The food was impeccable, it always is, but that's not it. It's the experience of being attended to in the most collegial, non-servile, wonderfully friendly way. I have to talk about Danny Meyer, who's Union Square Cafe. In fact, Susan Friedman edited all those books. He created an idea of much more casual, welcoming service that had the idea that the servers met you where you were. You didn't have to live up to some lofty ideal of where they were. And Bernardin has an extremely high standard of food. And so Eric, as a person and a chef, has not only created a place where the staff is really cared for, he hired a whole family meal chef. He created a position so that there'd be a separate chef who would make meals for the staff. But he himself has been very influenced by Buddhism and meditating. And he's a very soulful leader, and he is a hero to me.
Yeah, I was wondering because for the many things, that was the one that you featured. Yeah. So I was just plain food curious. What can I say? I want to wrap up because I know your time's valuable. And as I said, I can listen to you forever. We could talk forever, but you have many, many things on your plate. So you had advance notice of my little ending questions.
Doesn't mean I have
Um,
good answers.
I'm
I'll
sure
try.
I'm sure you're fine. I'm not concerned. Um, okay, you do cook, you do bake. What was your ultimate culinary fail?
Oh, I think it was trying endlessly to make tarte tatin, upside down caramel apple tart, and having it just turn to black and most of it stick in the pan, or else slide out a horrible, embarrassing pale tan because I didn't have the courage to caramelize the sugar enough. I tried so hard, and it was Julia Child's recipe, and it actually led to a years-long friendship with Julia that I wrote her. She was incredibly receptive to anyone who wrote her, who she listed her number, she picked up the phone, but I just couldn't get tartare right.
I made it once and I had guests, okay? And it didn't caramelize and its butter was oozing. I just pulled out some vanilla ice cream, scooped it up, put it in the pan, and served it. And I went, never again, never again. You heard my title, Frustrated Baker. It is a science, it is a talent. But when you said the tartan, I went, yes, I'm not the only one. Okie dokie. If you could wake up tomorrow morning with a new talent, what would it be? And don't say a baker, because I know there's probably other things.
Oh gosh, speaking Chinese, playing the piano better. I played it all my life, but I've never played it as well or known how to improvise. Same thing about cooking. I don't know how to improvise, but having the confidence to improvise.
Okay. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Um, Stop worrying so much about whether you will die impoverished and sell pencils on the street and concentrate on what makes you happiest to do. Because I wound up doing that mostly while incredibly worried about selling pencils on the street, as I still am as a sort of habit of mind. But concentrating on what you most love and helping others to do it too brings more fulfillment than anything.
I'm curious, and I'm off track, but when you went to Yale, was journalism the track that you were following, or did journalism pick you?
I'd already started editing a paper at high school, and I revived a very good magazine called The New Journal, which had been not published for 3 years. It was started in the late 60s, and it has since been brought to glorious professional heights, much better than I ever envisioned. But I did that. It was that in theater that I most liked. But at that time, the English department, I was an English major, wouldn't allow you to do journalism. It was beneath contempt. That was something you could do when you got your hands dirty after a lofty education. There was a college seminar program you were allowed on the side. It was like having a mistress or something, where you were allowed a little bit of illicit fun doing journalism, but it was not honored. That's changed a great deal.
Hmm. Okay, get back on track. I had that as a note. Two things that must be in your refrigerator. Two must.
Oh, Parmesan cheese, always, always, always. It is so often my dinner along with raw carrots. And fresh cream. That was my pandemic treat, along with your least favorite beverage, coffee.
Thank you for remembering. One, two, three, four. Okay. What's the best bite you've had all week?
Well, I was at Le Bernardin last week. I mean, of course it's going to be
Of
Le
course.
Bernardin. And we all ordered everything there was with uni, but it was horizontally sliced sea scallops with uni on top, some chervil on top of that, a very light but flavor-filled fumet blanc with white wine, a reduction sauce over it, and the purity of the flavors that showcase the ingredients, all things I love. It's going to be my most memorable bite in months, I think, not just in the past week.
Okay. You know that I don't like coffee. I don't like uni. I'll try anything once or twice. And the first time it went in my mouth, it became a moving projectile at the same time.
Oh
And I've
dear.
never done. So between that and coffee, I can see we can't go out to eat together.
Or we can
Um,
have all of each other's that the other one doesn't want.
okay, sounds like a plan. And Corby, what didn't I ask you that I probably should have?
Um, do you miss restaurant reviewing and the excitement of journalism for your wonky do-gooding, which you always have to raise money for to keep going at the Aspen Institute? And the answer is I don't, because being able to help others make the kind of change you saw as maybe possible as a journalist and having a chance to roll up your sleeves and help make it happen has been incredibly satisfying. So I've been incredibly fulfilled by that, even though I wake up every night wondering will I keep the lights on.
It has been a pleasure. It's such an honor to be able to chat with you and share the information about the aspenfood.org. I remind people aspenfood.org, corbykummer.com. Go to LinkedIn, type in Corby Kummer, and you will see everything that he's up to and what he's reading and what he's talking about and what's going on at WGBH. And I thank you. All the best. May funds fall upon Aspen Food.
What an honor to talk to you, and how marvelous that you're so beautifully prepared. You're an example for us all.
Oh, I thank you. I got my gold star. I'm so excited.
And more. Thanks so
And
much.
more. You're welcome. Okay, everyone, just to let you know, next week's guest will be Bill Brady, food photographer since 2000. Bill created a smartphone food photography course designed for chefs, not photographers. Food photographs are at the heart of social media. The right photo of a dish might make you want to lick the screen. The recent PF Chang's videos or directed by Bill. Join in, ask your questions when we are live February 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you need to reach me, at Dara Cooks is on Instagram. And on Facebook, you can find the Food Enthusiast, jmoreliving.com, the website. Under the food menu, you'll find the Food Enthusiast, and all the videos, all 262 of them are there. I count it off each week for you. And there's also a link to sign up for the bi-monthly newsletter. All shows are immediately archived in video form on Jay Moore's Facebook page and jmoreliving.com. We truly appreciate it when you share a show with friends and family. Feel free to go back into our archives and enjoy past shows. As I always end, may your plates always, always remain full. Thank you for joining us.